What up?
Good morning. Hello, Meg. Thanks for joining. This is our weekly live Q&A. So, Meg, if you have questions, send them our way. Shoot them in the comments. We'll answer them. How's your Saturday going so far? Well, Meg, how's your Saturday going? Shane, how's your Saturday?
Oh, it's good. Just got back. Had to do, I went to the park and stuff. I had to nail trim and whatnot for Pogie. Take care of the grooming stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. How about yours?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty relaxed.
Nice.
Doing some chores around the house, cleaning, things like that.
Nice.
So we're just going to get right into it. So before we get into it, this is our weekly live Q&A. We're just like talk dog pretty much. If you have questions, shoot them in the comments. If you're watching this on a replay, definitely you can comment, got questions, answer them up probably in the comments, or maybe we'll save them for another live. Lisa Rose, thanks for joining. I was just going over, what we're going to be doing. If you're having issues with your dogs, there's a link in our bio, Kindred Dog PDX. You can hit that link, schedule a call. We can talk about what's going on, think about a path moving forward. We've also got an online training course called Calm and Connected, and also a 4-week essentials course that is a little bit more, coaching. I will be doing weekly coaching calls with you during that 4-week course. But it's all about building the fundamentals, and that is essentially what I wanted to talk about today, was thinking about the skills gap between where your dog is at and like the issues that you are experiencing, and like the skills needed oftentimes in order to work on the issues that you are having with your dogs. Okay. And I got thinking of this because I used to do an online workout program, and actually a lot of how we do private lessons is modeled after this online fitness program. So this guy had come out with this thing. I'd been following him for a while in a different workout program, and he had come out with this course. And it was all about building fundamentals, but you also were working towards a skill set, just like a fundamental fitness program that you can use for life, so not so much, lifting weights to be strong, but it was like being strong to be functional, like when you're 60 years old, can you like, like carry your kid, just like functional exercise. Okay. So I always wanted to do a handstand. Okay. And that was part of the course, was doing a handstand. But in order to get to the handstand, you had to work on all of these other things. It was, building up shoulder flexion, because sometimes you don't realize, but you can't get your arms straight up. They might be slightly forward, because you're tight. So you had to like work on shoulder exercises. In order to even get to the handstand, it would be like putting your feet on a bin and trying to do an L, and getting your arms straight. Yeah, working your wrists to get that going, right? So
again, you got to have your good wrist flexion, also strength in your wrist to be able to maintain your weight.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there was like 5 exercises that led up to the actual execution of doing a handstand. So that's what I was thinking about today, or just throughout this week, because it's always the same thing when I'm talking to people, right? They are calling us because they are experiencing an issue. Oftentimes the issue has been around, but now it has escalated, and so now we're in a panic, oh my God, my dog did X, Y, and Z. They've never done this before. but now I need to fix the problem. And we've touched on this in other lives as far as urgency and things like that. But, you know, in order for us to tackle the thing that you are working on or the thing that you are experiencing, we need to look at what does your dog know, you know, because if your dog doesn't know anything, it's going to be really hard to work on those issues, you know. So we have a couple other people joining here. Just want to say what's up. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, feel free just to throw them in the comments and we'll answer them. Okay. Doesn't matter if it, you know, goes off topic or whatever. Just if you have questions, answer them. We'll answer them, because more often than not, there's going to be someone in this live or someone watching this live on a replay who has experienced those same exact problems, and it could probably be helpful for them. Okay, so don't be shy, ask the questions. Okay, so before I get into it, or you know, Shane, do you have any thoughts on this?
So, you know, I think the idea, right? So yes, you need to have skill set, like what is needed to work on the thing that you're wanting to work on. And I think also I just experienced just the things this past like couple of weeks. You know, I had a training dog here with me, and so I'm kind of going out and doing things, and it's like dealing with stuff in the general public. And one of the things that comes to my mind with this, like even before we even start thinking about like the skill sets that we need to solve a particular problem, it's like identifying the issue, right? And you know, like these things, they turn into patterns. And if you don't identify the pattern, you're not going to sure what's going on, right? And so like what I mean by that is like if you know your dog is going to lunge at that dog, right? You're on the walk and it's like, yeah, we just walk casually and I just like checked out and then the dog's lunging at something. It's like, okay, but he does it every time. Like you need to be able to identify these things that are really actually like what's the issue at hand, right? Maybe on that it was just like he's completely tuned out in the first place, right? There's leash frustration because why? He goes and runs up to every dog when you let him out at the park. Like what are the patterns and the general things that just kind of go along, right? Someone has their front door open and then every time someone walks by, the dog goes running out to the front door, out to the yard, starts barking at the person or the dog passing by. It's like these are patterns that happen that you need to one identify that that's an issue, right? If that's a problem for you, like that's something that you need to work on, right? But what all leads to that? Is it the barking at the dog? Is it the lack of impulse control? Is it the lack of boundaries? Like what are we dealing with exactly? And then what skills do you need to deal with those things? You know,
Yeah.
I have, you know, live in an apartment building, right? And new neighbors moved in, their door is open, and it's like I'm heading out with the dog. The dog hears us move, dog starts barking, beelines it out of the apartment, runs up the stairs, and comes charging at us. And it's just like, that's not cool. That's not good. I can tell you have no control of your dog, and now it's like 1 foot away from the street.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's just like obviously that's not the first time that that's going to happen. Dog was brave enough to run out the front door, like that's practiced, right?
Yeah.
And so you know, like identifying the patterns of your dog, so you know what it is that you need to work on. That's what I think is like step one. You know, and then from there it's just like, okay, what do I need to do to work on these things? What is it that I am working on, right? So, you know, if we look back at the walk, right, and the dog is lunging and stuff on the walk, and it's just like, okay, how do you break down those pieces to the walk? So if we go back and just comparing it back to the handstand thing, it's not just learning how to stand on your hands, right? You got to work on your shoulders, you got to work on your wrists, you got to work on being able just to get up into the air, you know. I know the handstand progressions where it's just like you might be putting your feet up on the wall. You know, you mentioned the 90-degree thing, and then it's like you kick up, you go back down, you kick up, you go back down, you kick up, you go back down, you kick up, and then you feet are balancing on the wall and you go back down. before you even think about trying to add in time, right? Because I mean, the goal with the handstand is to maintain position. And so, but
Yeah.
there's so many pieces that you have to work on in order to get that. So just like as if like, you're going out on a walk, it's just like, it's the same thing. There's a lot of pieces that go into the walk. Does the dog understand position? Does the dog have impulse control? Does the dog understand the leash?
Mm-hmm.
Can it withstand distractions and like simple little positional things? And I ask it down and the dog hold it down while someone walks by without even having to think about a walking concept.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
We got a comment question here. So Lisa Rose says, for my dog, it's jumping up on people to try to get treats or out of excitement. So I think this could be a really good, just like on the fly, So if I was working with the dog who was jumping on people, okay, jumping on people is inherently out of excitement, right? Because they're either excited to get the treats or just excited to see the person. So it's generally an excitement sort of thing. So the categories that I would be thinking about, so identifying the problem, and now how do we work on that problem? Well, first off, we have to block the rehearsal of the behavior. So if our dog is off the leash, it's 100% up to them on how it's going to go, and we're hoping for the best, okay? So first thing, we got to block the behavior, block the rehearsal of the jumping up, because when they jump up and if someone is like, no, and then they, put their hands on your dog, they're looking at your dog, they're talking to your dog, they could be inherently reinforcing that behavior, because negative attention is still attention, because our dogs don't understand what is negative or not negative. Okay, just because we said no doesn't mean they are taking that as I don't like that. Okay, unless we have taught them inherently what no means. Okay, so we got to block the behavior, keeping your dog on a leash. Okay, keep them from accessing that person. Then we've got to look at, does your dog have an ability to take direction? Can I say, if my dog is on a leash, can I be like, Fido? They're staring at the person. Can I be like, Fido? And they look at me? That's a good first step. If they can't do that, then we have to build up some skills. Also, namely like a marker system. So then when I say Fido and they look to me, I can go, yes, and then pay them. Okay, so then they start to understand. So when I look at this person, I don't get to run to them, but then I turn around and look at my owner, and then I run to them and get some food. Because one of the biggest things that I see is we are not channeling the dog's excitement, right? A lot of trainers will just be like, correct the dog. They jump up, smack them on the leash, like correct them, give them a knee collar tap or something, knee the dog. And like, I get it, but I feel like there's a better way,
Well, I think you can also think about it in steps too, right? If the dog understands an expectation of like, don't, like, let's do something else first, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
build up this concept first of like, yeah, let's not do that, right? Let's
Yeah,
do this first. And then once they have that understanding, then you could start to bring in the adversive.
exactly. And so like, I was just walking this through a client of mine. She had her friend over, she filmed it for me. I watched the video this morning, and it's like, your dog just needs to be calm when they approach the person, right? Like, how do you calm your dog down? Well, you drain their energy. Well, how do you drain their energy? Through working them. Okay, so they're outside, her dog is on a leash, she's attached to her harness, her friend is filming, and her dog is getting excited, and she calls her dog off. Sienna, come. Yes. Food scatter on the ground. Okay, she does that 3 times. Eventually, her dog is just starting to like look at her, like look at the owner, right? She's like, oh, you got the food, And it only took 3 times for her to recall her dog, throw a little food on the ground, and then her friend was able to pet the dog, and then she called the dog off and she got some more food, and they were actually able to like interact with her dog without her dog jumping up, where previously her dog would jump up because of excitement. Because I have other videos that she has sent me over this thing. Okay. So we have to channel the excitement somewhere else. All right. Because like, I want my dogs to be excited, but you can be excited and manage yourself. And I feel that's what that is doing, is it's helping our dogs manage that behavior a little. Like, yeah, you can still get excited, but you can, there's levels to that excitement. And I think if we just, straight up just like punish that, I don't know, for me, it feels like we could be squashing our dog. And like Shane said, you know, I think we need to fairly teach what we want them to do first before we start saying, hey, no, don't do that. Because if we don't take that time, it feels very reactionary.
One of the things that it's like, I also, it's like when we think about dogs jumping up, right? It's like, what are they going for? They're going for these, right? They're wanting to come up. And it's like one thing, it's like, yeah, the dog is excited. That's one thing. It's just like, your dog isn't just going to be like, guest has arrived. And they're going to be calm and just like, let me just trot up to you and sniff you and pet my back, But it's like most of the time when guests come over and whatnot, their hands are up. They're like, whoa, the dog's jumping at me. And like, whether it be good or bad, high, off, whatever, But it's like they're looking for this. They're looking for that. And it's like a little Band-Aid technique. Like you could literally just be like, give them a target. Put your hand down.
Yeah.
If it's a friendly dog, you're not worried about them. Like, well, they're coming to you all suspicious or anything like that. You're like, this dog is like friendly. It's like, give them a target to go to. Hey, I'm going to put my hand down here and you go to my hand. I'll give you some chin scratches.
Yeah.
And then that gives the owner time, call them off because they're getting this like fulfilled, but you're actually not letting them jump. I mean, it's just like a stupid, simple technique. Yeah, it may not work all the time, but it can keep your dog from jumping on you.
Yeah,
I do it.
totally.
If I see people's dogs that I know are going to jump on me, I put my hand down low because they want scratches. They can smell me already, and they're not like coming up to me weary. Sniff my hand. Like, again, if that dog's weary, they're not going to be jumping on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so it's like that excited dog that's going to be like, hey, it's you. Put your hand down. They're going to go, oh, yeah. Give me that. Give me the. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay, yep, there you go. They call them back. It gives them time because they got the thing that they're looking for.
Exactly.
I mean, and so it's just like it could be something super simple, but it's like at the same time, it's like for me, I like to have control over it, right? Because again, your dog could be so focused on the thing that what it is, and it's like you become powerless. But then that's again, it's just like you're like everything that you say, the dog falls on deaf ears, and like the person is just one instance where that's going to happen, right? That could also be the dog at the park. That could be the squirrel, right? And if your dog can't, prioritize your direction in these particular areas, like everything is connected.
Everything is connected.
And it's going to be problematic. So it's problematic with the person, it's going to be problematic with the dog, it's going to be problematic with the squirrels, it's going to be problematic with anything that's going to elicit like that kind of level of excitement, right? Yes, those are different kind of things between like a squirrel and a person, the prey driving the excitement, but it's like that dog is in an elevated state. Mm-hmm. Right. And if you have no control over those kind of things, it's like that like anything when the dog is heightened, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah. And that's, the other thing that my client's working on is also being able to recall her dog off of an exciting thing, so by breaking down the whole picture of meeting a person, it's going to be like we have a whole protocol for this. And here's the protocol. Your dog should be crate trained. If they're not, it makes this immensely more difficult, but it can be done. But your dog is in a crate. Your guest is coming over. They've called you. They've texted you. They're saying, hey, Susan, I'm coming over, or I'm here at the door. Okay, great. Let me put my dog away. You put your dog away. Okay, so then you can answer the door and be calm, right? So you're not trying to wrestle the dog. Like that comes later, okay? Because that's just a more advanced thing. Having your dog go lay down on their dog bed, you opening the door, the guest coming in, that's like World Series level challenge, all right? When you and your dog have a better skill set, that is absolutely part of the training. But if this is something that you're struggling with first, you got to first build up your skills in order to even like, you know, just work your dog into the living room. So your dog goes into a crate. You tell your friends, hey, I need you to practice no touch, no talk, no eye contact, because the more your friends look, touch, and talk to your dog, the more excited your dog is going to be, the harder it's going to be for them to be successful, and the harder it is going to be for you to be able to coach your dog. You tell your friends, hey, just have a seat on the couch, get them some water, you know, get them a beer, whatever, and they're just going to sit on the couch. Okay, they're going to ignore your dog. You're going to go grab your dog from the kennel with the leash on them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to work your dog into you. Because when you bring your dog out of the kennel and you start to head into the living room, your dog is going to pull on the leash. They're going to try to get to the person because they are excited. And you're going to call them back to you. You know, Fido, here, yes, food scatter. You need to have some food. And then this will be part of the basic skills is, does your dog take food there? You know, if they don't take food in that moment, then you need to work on building that skill set in an off time, right? And like it would be in lower distraction environments. Like, does your dog take food in the backyard? If they don't take food in the backyard, they're not going to take food around a person. So by building up the skill of, oh, my dog will eat in the backyard, they'll eat in the front yard, they'll eat at the Home Depot parking lot, you are in a much better position to be able to coach your dog in that higher and almost the highest level of distraction for your dog. So you call your dog back because they are not going to pull you down the stairs. They are not going to pull you into the living room, because if they are allowed to pull you into the living room, they're allowed to pull you to go sniff the grass. They are allowed to pull you to go say hi to that dog. They are allowed to use that in order to get what they want. So you have to also be very clear on what are your rules and boundaries. Okay. You work your dog into you. Like, oh, now my dog is more relaxed. You know, we're not talking about Eeyore here, but they're a little bit more aware of me and the leash and just like where we're at. You're able to then walk into the living room. They're still pretty relaxed. You get closer to your friend. They start to get elevated again. Fido, come. Yes. Boom. Do that 3 or 4 times. Okay. Don't rush getting to the greeting. That's another part where people make a mistake, is they just want to like get to the pets really fast, you know, and it might take you 10 minutes. Take the 10 minutes. It might take you 15 minutes. Take the 15 minutes. A lot of folks will just, you know, they'll get 1 or 2 reps and then they get into it and then their dog's jumping again, you know, and it's like, you know, that's not bad. That's just information. It's like, okay, next time I need to do more, right? And the reason why I'm saying 10, 15 minutes is because that's usually what it's going to be. Like I've seen this play out 1,000 times. Okay?
It's like they need to look at, you know, your what you're looking for state of mind.
Yeah. And you
Right.
want, you know, again, you don't want Eeyore, but you want like some visible movement in a calmer space. And then once you actually even get the sniffing in, it's like I tell people, let your dog sniff for 1 second and then call them away. Because the lingering by the feet is what leads to jumping up. Almost every single time. Of course, there's always exceptions, but more often than not, your dog will start at the feet. They're getting excited, they're getting wiggly, and
Their nose
then
moving higher.
and then they're just like, now they're up. All right, so you let them sniff the feet. Fido, come. Yes. Boom. And then pay them, right, and do that 3 or 4 times. Then on the 5th time, then you can be like, okay, give them a light head scratch, and then stop petting, call them off. Okay, that right there will help you. Okay. Lisa, teaching the settle on the bed first is super great. The other thing you might want to think about when you actually get to like answering the door and stuff like that is a tether. have your dog go to place, throw a back tie on them, a tether, so it's like a leash tied to something heavy, so then they can't break off of place and rush the door, because that will just ultimately erode your dog's ability to hold a place, because then it's just basically saying like, sure, I can hold a place when there's no distractions, but when a distraction comes along, I can't. So you need to, again, block the access to the door, and you're going to do that through a tether. So then that way you can answer the door calmly. You can say, hey, no, go back to your bed, answer the door. It'll help you out. It'll be like a person holding a leash and helping you train your dog in that moment. Okay. But yeah, so skills needed on that, in that whole concept there: crate training, being able to take food around low, mid, even high distractions, being able to follow a leash, being able to hear their name and like turn around and actually acknowledge it. 4 baseline skills in order to meet a person.
And I think one thing as you go through and your, whatever really your approach is to doing things, right? It's like when the dog is excited, and again, this doesn't necessarily have to apply to just like meeting people, but just like, again, being able to take direction. The more you can practice it, the more the dog will listen to you, right? But you got to have practice in whatever causes the dog to be excited. Um, but it's like usually when I think about it, it's like, like the first easy wins, right? So it's like, oh, hey, this person's coming in. Let's say you don't have your dog in the crate. You don't have that option. Maybe you do. I don't know. But you call your dog off, and you're like, hey, let's go, buddy. And then you toss your food down, and maybe even toss a toy. Each time you do something like that, they can connect a little bit more with you, and then they also know that that reward is coming, and so their ears are open more. And so when you kind of practice those little concepts, it's like they're more aware of what can come, right? Like good things, but then they're also just more apt to take direction from you in those kind of senses. So like, just as like what I was, I had a dog here, and before it would see, like, I was really working on the dog being able to like see dogs, because it would just want to like run after them. It get a little bit grumpy, and I didn't want to just tell the dog no, and like, but it's like, yeah, we're here at the park, we're playing. Dog looks, and it's just like, call the dog's name, they check in, all right, go get the toy, boom. you know. So therefore, when we started seeing the dogs, like the forward movement stopped, and it was like, oh, look, there's a person. Good job, buddy. Go get the toy, But we ended up like creating like a fuse, and the goal, like it was still a challenge when there was like still like this super heightened energy. Like, okay, the dog's getting crazy playing with this ball, and it's like 10 feet away, like a tennis court, we're on the outside of it. Like, that was tough. But when it was more just like the passing of things, it showed just like impulse control. Hey, chill out. You wait and chill. Something cool is going to come your way, But then it didn't have to just be for like the ball. It could just be like, okay, go sniff. You know what I mean? The release, just like kind of like, and that would also be in the sense of like, go say hi. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, all right, hey, bring it back. But I can call you back in. But again, we have this like understanding of like, yeah, pay attention to the words that I am saying. Go lay down. Like if I were going to teach my dog to just like settle, I think that's a viable approach. Leave him on the back tie. Might take him 30 minutes to settle down. Once they do, okay, grab your lead. Go say hi. What do you do though? Do you get amped back up? Let's go. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're gonna there's going to still be the sense of needing to work that dog through that. Oh, hey, you're gonna go say hi. It's hard to pull you off, right? Hard to get you to wait. It comes from the guest. Go get the toy. Go get this food scatter. Let's go back and lay down now.
Yeah.
Back tying the dog to settle. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's still you're still going to use the same kind of approach, because again, it's like, yes, the dog is going to relax in that moment, but what I just think is there's two things. When you bring your dog out on the leash and then you're working them through like getting closer to the person, you know, and calling them off and all that stuff. Like to me, like they are learning how to relax with the person, but also being able to engage with them. Right? If they're always kept at a distance of the person, they're never going to learn how to relax after engaging with the person. Right? When they get the chance, then it's going to become very exciting all over again. And so it's like you still have to practice this concept. It's just you have to practice like calling the dog off and being able to engage with you when they're in a heightened state. Because the moment they go back to the person to go say hi, they're like, oh, there it is, finally. I'm getting to the thing that I want. And so you're still going to have to practice calling them away. Otherwise, just don't let them say hi if you don't want them to get excited. You know, but I think the end goal is like you want your dog to be able to move freely.
Yeah. Thoughts on what if your dog is usually motivated with treats during training and usual activities, but high distraction like a squirrel runs in path and the interest in the treat is not there? So NYC Sean, so the one thing I would be thinking about, first thing I would be thinking about is, has your dog already had food? So, you know, dogs are hunters, okay? And if he's already been satiated with breakfast and then you're taking extra food, you know, extra treats out on a walk or out to the park, your dog has a higher likelihood. Oh, Roxy. Yeah. Your dog has a higher likelihood of not wanting those treats. So, I would, you know, there could be a distance factor. Okay. So the closer your dog is to the trigger, the more intense her reaction is going to be. So you might need a little bit more distance through that. You know, it takes practice, you know, because if your dog has a history of chasing those squirrels, there's a lot of payoff in those things, you know. So keeping her on a leash and like letting her fixate, but then like calling her off, you know, Roxy, come, yes, boom. And you know, in those moments you might try a higher value treat. Because yeah, I know Roxy here, you're really good about oh, we're gonna just use her, she hasn't had breakfast yet and we're going to use food for training, you know, so that is a really good first step. But I would be not so much focusing necessarily on the squirrel. I'm always looking for like, where does the fixation even just start? You know, it could happen immediately, just forehead, you know, forehead's wrinkled, ears forward, mouth is closed, and she's like fixated. Like, that's where I'm recalling the dog, is that moment. Like, I don't even know if she sees a squirrel, but she sees something because she's that fixated in the world, you know?
I
And
got
then,
to chime in to like kind of just add to that, you know, like I would think about what does the reward look like, right? So with the squirrel, it enables chase. Choo! That's exciting. That's like dogs like to chase. You know, a dog may not play fetch, but they will chase the ball. Right? They'll catch it, chew it. Maybe they just oh look, I just wanted to run after that thing that was moving. You know? So like one thing you can think about is how your reward looks. If you're just like, yes, and you're sticking your hand out and wanting the dog to come running over to you, it's like that may not be exciting to the dog. You know what I mean? But if you're
yeah,
like, yes, the dog comes running and then it comes, you know, like you go, get it, toosh, and you throw the treat, that might be a bit different. Or if you're like, Roxy, come, yes, and then you start running off. Oh, you're going that way? Like creating like an equally exciting dynamic of how the reward is coming can be super helpful for the dog to pull them away from what they perceive as exciting as chasing the squirrel.
mm-hmm.
You
Yeah, have
know,
them chase you instead.
exactly. You know, or chase your reward with throwing the get like a get it treat, right? Um, you know, you could also just think about, I mean, even with the toy, right? I don't know what kind of play drive the dog has with toys and stuff, but it's just like a toy might be a great value, you know, a high value reward. Get it, too. Go chase that instead. but it gives like the same kind of idea of what it wants to do with that, but with something more productive, right? That leaves you with an ability to give input. Um, because I do think if we're just standing still and we're like, holding this thing out, the dog's like, that's good, but that's really good. I want to chase that squirrel. And the history is showing chasing that squirrel is like very awesome for me. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And so it's like,
Yeah.
how can you bring out something more like that, but on your end of the thing? So the dog's focusing more, paying attention to you. That would be
Yeah.
something that I would kind of think about. Because especially, you know, your dog looks at the squirrel and they're like, oh man, there it is. And you got it on the leash. And they're like, they can't get to it, right? They're
Hmm.
going to try. This could take 30 seconds. It could take a minute. But they're going to, ugh, that didn't work. And then that's going to be a great moment to be like, get their attention. Roxy, huh? Yes, stoosh, go get it. Boom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like if you're like dogs goes and like you're now tuned out, right? It's staring, it's fixating, it's on its hind legs because now there's all this restriction. It might be going left and to the right, but just wait. They relax. Roxy, because now their mind is shifting from this, and the squirrel may be out of the picture now, but this is also where you have to build up. Because the more like, oh, you know what, that just happened, then you got my attention, and then you rewarded me when I came away.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, where that happens is going to happen in different phases. This was like, oh, the thing had to get away. You practice that. Okay, okay. And you just, all right, there's a squirrel. Roxy, history has been showing you've been calling my attention, and that's been pretty exciting. Dude, go get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And this is where that, like, especially like in the online course there, Sean, it's like that. So that motion backwards is the chase. When you say
Mm-hmm.
yes and you bring that treat down and you bring it so she can see it and you are like walking backwards, it's like that's also helping her keep her attention, but it's also prey, because just because it's a treat in your hand doesn't change what it is fundamentally to our dogs. Like,
Yeah.
sure, I know it's just a processed piece of food, but for our dogs, it's prey.
Yeah.
And
It's like
so,
you can make her miss. Shoo. Go front
exactly,
miss
just like the
again.
squirrel, right? So that's sort of where that, like, coming back and then forward, right? Because you could come back and then it's like, oh, you miss, and now you're going to eat it, in this other position. So that's why I always say, take 5, 10 steps back, use the space, get your dog to chase you, because that's how you're going to be more exciting than the thing. If we are like, something that I see often is, we'll be like, yes, or, we take like 2 steps back and then we pause and then we reach into the food bag and then we pay the dog, like we could lose their attention in that moment of pause. So it's like, we want to be like, yes, walking backwards, facing our dog, reaching into our pocket, and then bringing it down. And then we stop when they're eating, pretty much. When they have connected their nose to my hand, I don't bring my hand to their nose. Their nose comes to my hand. And that's often too is a small little detail that can really change that dynamic. Um, but we have a lesson coming up, so we can talk more about that.
Good question there. Favorite high value treat?
So my favorite food is called, from a brand called Robble. It's freeze dried. It comes in lamb, it comes in beef, it comes in pork, duck,
Chicken, salmon, or something like that.
chicken, salmon, I think too. Yeah. But the Robble, super great. Just a dehydrated food. Um, One ingredient. It's just
Well, there's like a few things in it, like coconut oil and a couple other stuff, but it is probably the best kind of treat because it is just food, right?
yeah.
But it's a raw food,
And it's
and
not super added calories or anything
yeah,
like that with a bunch of extra crap in
yeah.
there.
Like one of the nice things about it though is because it's like a meal of that takes a lot, right? And so it's like when you buy a bag of the Robble and stuff, it's like, yeah, it's like for what, like, what my dog would eat if I wanted for like her comparable size, it's like it's gonna take 2 cups of this treat, right? Two
Yeah.
cups, a lot of it for like a meal. And when you're thinking about how much you're gonna dish out in the treat, because they're like small,
Yeah, like pinky nail size.
Yeah, and so it's like you can really do a lot of training with those. Then it's just like super helpful. I did like trying to build up different skills with my dog, and like even though she like had breakfast, and then it's like, all right, we're gonna work with some treats here. Like totally great with doing that because it's like you don't really have to worry about your dog like getting fat.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Robble, we get it from Portland Pet Supply over on Hawthorne. I think Pets on Broadway might sell it. I know you can order it online, but it's Rawbble, and it's a great one. It comes, the biggest bag probably comes with freaking like 3,000 little pieces. It's
Yeah,
good. Like it'll last you a
it's
while.
and yeah, and it's a little bit on like I mean, like when you look at treats and stuff, it's like it's definitely on like the a little on the more costly side. I think it's like the big bag is like $55, but it should last a little while.
Yeah, a while,
And
like a
it's good.
couple months.
I would say it's a quality treat. And
Yeah.
it's not like so like one thing we used to use a lot was like beef liver, the Stewart's beef liver. But it's like if you get too much of that, it can give your dog the runs, and so it's like you have to minimize. And so you can with the Robble, it's like you can really like vary your reward size, the reward length of doing that, how you're doing it. If you're doing scatters, just whatever, like how you're doing it, it's just like you can. Too much isn't going to be detrimental to the dog. I've only had like one client of mine. It did not sit well with their dog and the food that they were giving it, and so they had to find some kind of different treats to use. And so, but Robble, I would say is the best way to go.
Yeah. Freeze dried meat. It's good.
And it holds together really well. I used to
Yeah, it
do
doesn't
Northwest
crumble.
Naturals, and Northwest Naturals would just like crumble, and then you're just like left with like a dust all the time. Um, and like the Rubble's really great at like holding like its form.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So it's 11:45 or 11:42. Just if anyone has any questions, observations about anything, throw them in the comments there. Thank you to those who are putting in some questions. Love that. Also, real quick, if you're stuck, if you're feeling stuck with your dog, hit the link in the bio, Kinder Dog PDX, schedule a phone call. It'll ask you some questions, what kind of stuff you're dealing with your dog. We'll talk about it, okay? Most of the time, I'm going to recommend my Smart Start private lesson program. It's because just like what we've been talking about here, it builds skill sets, okay? Skill sets that you will use to problem solve things with your dogs. And I was thinking about this too. It's just like, oftentimes it's just, yes, dogs are just going to do dog things, and those behaviors aren't inherently bad. They're just dogs, they just like, this is what a dog does. And the courses that we have created build build a skill set that allows you to be able to troubleshoot and problem solve those things, and like literally oftentimes it's just the application of some basic skills, like the squirrel thing. It's just, that's a recall, just, yeah, your dog fits things, call them up. It might take 1,000 times, like, and that's just the reality of it. Every dog is going to be different. Some dogs are going to have an immense prey drive. So you're going to have to really work this, and like Shane was saying with like the toys and stuff, like it's going to take a trial and error sort of thing as to like what's really going to help them change their behavior. Some dogs super chill, couple of tries and they're like, cool, I don't want to chase that squirrel. But other dogs, oh, I really want to chase that squirrel. So maybe, like you said, I need to come up with something that's of equal or higher value to say, hey, this is what happens when you don't chase that squirrel, increasing the fuse before the explosion. And yeah, sometimes it is, can we play with them? Can I go outside? Can I start a game of tug and, what have you? And, I'm like out, dog looks at the squirrel, ready? Yes, boom, and then we're like playing again, those create associations, right? It's just like that Pavlov. the bell salivating. You know, you can be like, squirrel, boom, now we're playing again. Squirrel, boom, now we're playing again.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're just creating a new pathway of like, when I look at the squirrel, it equals go and engage with my owner, you know? Um, and
But
it's just
with that
the
though,
other thing too is like all of your training is building more engagement, right? It's like if your dog has a history of disengaging from you around distractions, it's like you're rebuilding that overall ability to engage with you because you are now connecting with your dog more intentionally in all of these other instances where they're ultimately going to be learning how to prioritize you because you are just being so much more intentional with them. You know, it's like, you know, I don't know. I think about like jujitsu in this example for whatever reason. Like, I got into jujitsu because, yeah, it's fun, you know, and I felt like I was getting exercise. And like a byproduct of just going and training, like my body changed. I actually like, you know, I have this photo that's like a side by side where it's like I wasn't lifting weights or anything like that, but it's like I looked stronger just from like and like, you know, I plateaued. Like there's a limit, you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna get more strength from training. Like you're just you're gonna have to supplement at some point, but like by training, my body changed. Also, like my like mind changed. You know, I was like more relaxed, and you know, so it's like that was an unseen byproduct of the act of like doing jujitsu. You know, and it's like that with our dogs. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be working on sits and downs. And it's just like on the surface, I'm teaching my dog how to hold a sit and hold it down. But on the back end, you're building engagement, you're building better listening, you're building your dog looking at you for direction.
uh, you know, so like, yeah, I was gonna say like that is 100% like exactly just these you're creating and you're practicing engaging with your dog. That's what it is, you know, and it's like for some folks, it's very challenging with the dog to engage with them. So you have to build that skill up, right? And it's like some dogs don't know how to take food. You build up learning how to take food. Some dogs don't know how to play, so you build up playing with them, right? But you go through these pieces and you make these things valuable. You know, I remember one dog that came in and just he was very wary about just like, you know, he wasn't motivated by the reward of just coming in for my hand.
Yeah.
But he was a very motivated when I told him to go get it and I tossed the reward. You know? And so even then it would be like, you know, like calling him out over recall, and it's like, yes, here's a little food scatter, but then it was like immediately followed up with like 7 get it. Get it, 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 yes. You know? And like all of these is like, you know, it was a trial and error, but it took building up the understanding of how to receive a reward that was exciting for them, right? Recognizing that and then building that up and how that reward can look like. Um, you know, doing that with this particular dog who had, you know, it was very fearful. That would be Harry,
Yeah.
and also that other dog, little dog Clancy, you know, who was also another bite risk. You know, couldn't get collars on him, and I made him love getting a collar on. But it was like how these things came about, right? He didn't know how to chase the food at the beginning, but once he discovered he liked that, that became a great reward for him, and it became easier for him to engage with me, right? And I was like, I remember doing like recalls with his owners, and it was like, yeah, you're gonna do yes, but then follow with us and get it. And it's like he's getting recalled off of people with like, you know, just verbal recall, and they hadn't even worked with him beforehand, you know, like this was like a first time practicing with them, and it was like, but again, it took the practice of him learning how to engage with the person and finding that there's value in them, and then
Mm-hmm.
how to what you know again finding value in the reward itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Making your reward an event, you know, instead of it just one piece of treat, it's like, yes, yes, you know, you do the yes off of the squirrel. You're like, you know, they come in and then you're like, yes, 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 you know, or yeah, throwing in the get it, right? Like, make it valuable, because our dogs operate on a value scale, and every dog's inherent idea of value, I think, is going to be different, you
Yep.
know. um and that's just, that's just the part of
The
training, is like, I have to, and it's, again, it's just like you're building like this toolbox, and you have this toolbox, and you're like, all right, from this toolbox, from this knowledge that I have, what's going to be the best approach to help my dog in this situation? I was with some clients yesterday, and I was like, sometimes it's a kissy noise, gets them to turn away. Yes, good dog. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's kissy noise and leash. Sometimes it's kissy noise and a little touch on the rear end. Yes. Um, it's like, and just because the kissy noise didn't work in this instance doesn't mean it's not going to work in another instance, or it doesn't mean it's not going to work in that same other context where it didn't originally work, but it will work in that, like 3 reps into it,
yeah.
so we've got to learn how to think on the fly. This is why I feel like private lessons are just so important for people, is because we are learning how the dog operates. It's not just like, oh, do this and they'll stop, do that and they stop. Like, I have never seen that work.
Yeah.
Ever. There's always going to be a moment where just do that doesn't work in this context. And then our owners are like scratching their heads like, I don't know, I hit the e-collar and he didn't come back.
Yeah, but that's all that they've like again, it's like that is, I mean, that's just kind of like a byproduct with like board and trains. Um, they don't get the full spectrum, as much as you can get it, try to convey that in a few sessions. It's just like, it's nothing like training your own dog.
No.
Because you got to work through a lot in order to get to wherever it is that you're going with. Like the dog that was here for the board and train that I just did, like it was like, he did a lot of tug, right? A lot of it. But I also learned like tug was great for him in a certain moment. But it's like when I was trying to call him off the dog and I tried to invite him in for a bite, no. But if I threw it, he was like, boom, instantly. Oh yeah, chase.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. And then what happened after that? Call him in, tug, 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 out, get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
like, that was super valuable for him. And even like changing out the toy just had a different feeling. I don't know if it was like the string attached to it. Oh, look at that. It looks like a tail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it
just,
should have been the novelty of just a new toy. He's like,
yeah.
oh, I
It
see
just,
that I see that gray leather tug all the time. Like, it's cool. I like it. But then he's like, oh shit, there's a new toy. It's like a kid, right? It's like they could
you know,
have all of these great toys that they love to play with, like Marcelo, right? Like, oh cool, I love cars. I got all these trains. He could have all, and then you give him a new train, and he's like, oh, I love this train. It like looks different. It sounds different, and it's like, now it's his new favorite toy. I still like all these other toys, but this one is like the toy,
yes,
and
exactly.
so it's like, again, we just have to be, and this is just something that you build through time, is learning how to experiment. But you can
Yeah.
only experiment when you have things to pull from. And a
It,
lot of I always like to say, it's like, you gotta try shit out and see what you get. It's like, oh, I said yes and I tried to, like, we don't do perfect things. Like, we're gonna go out with a dog and we're gonna have that tug toy and we're gonna be like tugging with them, and then a distraction comes up and we're gonna try to tug with them again, just like Shane said, and they're not going to want to tug. And then we're like, okay, plan B, But we have plan B, C, D, E, F. Like, I've got a whole shitload of things that I have in my brain that I'm gonna try to, like, get this dog to engage with me. And like, these other things might not work, but they might work
I
eventually
I use this
in
the
that
same
same setting.
with like a lot of white belts in jujitsu. I mean, not even just like, wow, it could be blue belts too, but it's just the concept, right? Is like people get so fixated on doing a particular move So that's all they see. That's all they see. And they don't see all the other things that come around. And so I always tell them, it's like, don't be married to the one idea. Don't stay stuck to this. Like, if this isn't working, don't keep pushing forward harder, right? You're just doing this. You need to change the angle. That's how you get past, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got to move, right? And so the same thing is like, oh, I try to get this dog to buy the tug toy. Yes, yes, yes. And it's like, look at that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But okay, let's pivot. Get it. Oh, he looked at it. Oh, but he didn't want to run to it. So I run to it. Oh, what are you doing? I do want that. You know, like you have to change your tactic. You can't just stay stuck with the one idea, because if you stay stuck with the one idea, you're gonna run into problems, because it's not there isn't just one solution for the problem. That solution
Yeah.
doesn't work, and then what are you gonna do? You know, just like you're saying, there has to be the plan B, plan C. All right, you ran out of options. Okay, you know what? Call it a day. Think about it. What can I do differently next time?
Yeah, and it could even be scaling things back, like maybe that was too much, and then come back and build up to that spot. Like we only have a few minutes left, but I think this is a really good example of, like Shane said, like changing the angle. So my dog Oso, who got me into dog training because he was so reactive and stuff, he always struggled on the walk. And for years, I just was always like, we got to go outside on the walk. And I was really like trying to hammer this down, and they never were changing. And I finally reached a point where I was like, all right, I'm going to stop thinking about what I should be doing, and I'm going to focus on my dog. Okay, I'm going to focus on what he is giving me. And when I started to focus more about him, that's when I started to see shifts in his state of mind. And coming to the walk, like taking a walk around the block, when I say it took me 6 months to walk around the block, I'm not joking, because at this time, I was a new trainer. I was learning things. I was practicing stuff. And, the information that I had at the time was like, correct him, and that wasn't working because I was doing it and I wasn't seeing it changing in the behavior. So that's when I was also like, I need to do something different, because we just keep arguing with each other. And so what I ended up doing was, I was like, all right, we're not going to do what I think we should be doing. I'm going to focus on him. So I started walking him inside the house. What did I see? A dog actually getting tired and like worked. And then it was, what happens when I open the door to the garage? Because we would exit out the garage door to go on our walk. Oh, his state of mind changed. All right, now we're walking in and out of the garage, into the house, into the garage, into the house, into the garage. He would be getting worked. Then it was, what happens when I open the garage door? Oh, the old dog would appear again. So now we're walking, garage door open, into the garage, into the house, back and forth, 20 minutes, And then it was like, what happens when I go down the driveway? Oh, old dog's popping in. Now we're doing this thing, back and forth again, back and forth again, back and forth again. And it was just because for him, it was just like every new change in the picture resulted in him going back to his like old ways, where he's like, oh, I'm like jacked again and looking for something to blow up on. And I was like, all right, we're turning around. Like, this is what we're doing. Like I stopped caring about what I should be doing, because I was also thinking about, man, I'm able to take these dogs who are hella reactive with their owners and get them out on walks almost immediately. But why is he struggling so much? And it's just, he needed this from me, And that's another thing that I want to really leave people with, is like, stop focusing on what you think you should be doing. Everyone thinks they should be going on walks. Everybody thinks they should be going to the park. And like, yes, those things are going to be good for your dog eventually, but like, what do they need from you right now in this moment? Whatever it is,
Yeah.
because like, I can guarantee you, if your dog is struggling just going down the stairs to the sidewalk outside, you going back and forth up and down those stairs for 20 minutes is going to do so much more for you, your dog, your relationship, and the whole activity in general, than if you just try to like muscle through that.
Yeah. You got to remove the ego
Got to
and
remove the ego.
think about what does my dog need here, and then just with that, it's just like, you got to think about, like, what other tactics can you apply?
Yeah.
I mean, just now thinking, I haven't thought about this in a long time. I remember those exercises with Oso and stuff, you know, and that was like a long time ago, a long time ago, and the amount of knowledge that like we have now compared to back then, like, I bet there's things that we do differently now, even with that.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Where it
just
wouldn't have taken me 6 months, but
yeah, but it's just like the that was like, and also I think just the time frame was just different. What kind of information was kind of available, what kind of seminars were present at that time, what kind of styles of training were out at that moment in time. Um, like the there's just there's a lot of things that go to it, but it's like in the end of stuff, it's like you gotta look at your dog and be like, what do they need right now? What do they need?
Yeah.
I want to do X, Y, and Z, but they need A, B, and C. So guess
Yeah.
what? We're working on A, and then we'll work on B, and then we'll work on C.
Yep.
And you just got, that's just what it is, right? It's like so many people get dogs and like, I want to take my dog to the patio. I want to go do walks, go to the park, go to the lake, all this stuff. And it's like, all right, well, you know what? Your dog is very far from doing any of those things. So what do you want? What do you need to do to get there? All right, let's do this.
And usually it's building the fundamentals first. So it's 12. We're going to end it here. If you need help building the fundamentals, hit the link in the bio. Let's schedule a call. Let's either we get some lessons going or sign up for our Calm and Connected online course. They are very heavily detailed videos, not just on the actual thing that we're teaching you, but there's just a lot of talking that's going on in there that we're talking about concepts and state of mind. And, so there is a lot of value in those videos because they're all like 10 minutes long. So there's a lot of information in there. There's also our 4-week essentials course. The next round is going to be starting August 1st. That is a very good value program, $395, 4 weeks, PDFs, videos, weekly coaching calls, to again, sort of like help you troubleshoot what you are doing with your dog in those weeks. But anyways, thanks for joining us. Hope you all have a great Saturday, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.